What if the most significant political deception in modern British history wasn't concealed in some backroom agreement or buried within leaked papers? What if it was unfolding right before our very eyes, wearing a red tie, delivering polished speeches, and proclaiming itself as integrity? That's precisely what Andrew Neil has just accused Keir Starmer of. And he didn't merely insinuate it, he articulated it with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel on live television. According to Neil, lying isn't just an occasional act for Starmer, it's the very system he operates. We're not talking about mere exaggeration or political spin here. We're discussing a leader who constructed an entire campaign, an entire potential government, upon deliberate deceit. And now, it appears the facade is crumbling. From appropriating conservative policies to fabricating immigration successes and seemingly plotting a £76 billion tax betrayal, it's becoming evident that Starmer didn't just abandon his principles, he arguably sold out the entire nation. This isn't just politics, it's tantamount to fraud. And it's high time we exposed the whole affair. Andrew Neil isn't your typical political commentator. This is a man who has witnessed every prime minister of the past 5 decades ascend and descend. He's observed the spin from Blair, the chaos from Johnson, and the wars under Thatcher. Yet, never has he voiced what he is now saying about Keir Starmer. In 55 years, Neil has never accused any government of making dishonesty its modus operandi, until now. That's not just a critique, it's an indictment of Starmer's entire leadership model. According to Neil, dishonesty isn't a slip-up in the Starmer administration, it's the strategy, the fundamental structure. And if that doesn't send shivers down your spine, it certainly should. Because this isn't about one ill-judged statement or a single misleading poster. It's about an entire prospective government built upon falsehoods and front-page illusions. Take immigration, for instance, an issue Labour prominently featured across their social media. A slick, official Labour poster boldly declared a net migration cut by nearly 50%, as if it were some heroic accomplishment by Starmer's team. But behind the scenes, that reduction was no doing of Labour's whatsoever. It was the direct result of James Cleverly's policy alterations under the Conservative Home Office, changes implemented long before Labour ever came close to power. Labour didn't instigate the change, they simply hijacked it, claimed it, and branded it as their own. That's not mere campaign strategy, that's akin to identity theft on a national scale. And it prompts the crucial question, if they are prepared to misrepresent something that can be so readily traced and fact-checked, what else are they being untruthful about? And this is where Andrew Neil's warning becomes truly unsettling. He's not just asserting that Starmer lies, he's contending that Starmer's government, should it come to pass, is fundamentally defined by dishonesty. That's a claim no serious journalist makes flippantly. Yet, Neil presented it with remarkable precision, highlighting the deceit that now appears to characterize the Labour Party's public communications. He depicted a prospective government that doesn't merely avoid the truth, it buries it beneath layer after layer of performance and spin. It's not an isolated error, it's a political swindle woven into the very fabric of the system. And yet, Keir Starmer stands before the cameras and speaks of restoring trust. That very word, trust, is rapidly becoming a jest under his leadership. Because while he smiles and reassures the public of Labour's honesty, his team is meticulously fabricating narratives that manipulate public opinion, utilizing borrowed policies, staged announcements, and precisely timed media releases. It's not just misleading, it's theatrical. However, the script is beginning to unravel. Andrew Neil's analysis didn't just critique a handful of policies, it questioned Starmer's entire foundational premise. Remember, this is the same Starmer who built his leadership campaign on 10 pledges, radical, audacious promises that galvanized the left. He spoke of nationalizing the railways, defending public services, taxing the wealthy, and breaking from corporate politics. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Jeremy Corbyn and referred to him as a friend, a leader, someone fit to govern the country. But it was, seemingly, all an act, because less than a year into his leadership, those pledges were quietly rescinded one by one. He didn't revise them, he simply erased them. And what was his excuse? When asked why he campaigned so vigorously for a man he now asserts he never even considered a friend, Starmer stated he wanted good colleagues to be returned. That's not a defense, it's an admission that he uttered things he didn't believe, championed policies he had no intention of upholding, and told voters precisely what they wished to hear, only to abandon the implied contract once he achieved his objective. That's not leadership, that's fraud with a smile. This is the core of Andrew Neil's scathing critique. Starmer isn't leading Labour, he's effectively conning it. He didn't ascend through principle, he climbed over the very movement he later, arguably, betrayed. He didn't win power through honesty, he weaponized public hope and traded it for political leverage. And now that he's in office, he's not altering course, he's doubling down. He's appropriating Conservative victories, emblazoning them with Labour logos, and presenting it as progress. That's not governance, that's theft disguised as public relations. And if you believe it concludes with immigration, reconsider. Because the £76 billion tax betrayal is, allegedly, just around the corner. Starmer claims he won't raise taxes, he promises to be fiscally prudent. But the figures don't lie, and we'll dissect that next. Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves want you to believe they are the adults in the room, the responsible figures armed with calculators, not mere slogans. But behind their polished PowerPoint presentations and meticulously staged interviews lies what could be the largest economic illusion in modern Labour history, the assertion of no tax rises for working people. The reality? A fiscal time bomb already ticking beneath the surface. Starmer's Labour isn't avoiding tax hikes, they are, allegedly, rebranding them, camouflaging them, and preparing to unleash them upon a middle class already reeling from years of inflation, stagnant wages, and struggling public services. And the most insidious aspect? They are purportedly lying directly to your face about it. Let's begin with the numbers. The Institute for Fiscal Studies, independent economists, and budget watchdog. Watchdogs have all scrutinized Labour's spending pledges. And here's the conclusion they consistently reiterate: there's a colossal discrepancy, ranging from £20 billion to £76 billion, depending on whose figures one chooses to credit. That's not a mere rounding error, that's a gaping chasm. Labour asserts they'll fund everything through economic growth and increased efficiency, but no serious economist takes that claim seriously. You don't plug a multi-billion-pound shortfall by simply streamlining government departments. You either slash public spending or you increase taxes. Starmer's team adamantly insists it's not the latter. However, the evidence suggests a different narrative. National insurance, one of the most regressive taxes in the UK, appears to be Labour's primary target. Rachel Reeves has openly entertained the notion of rebalancing it. But let's cut through the jargon. Rebalancing invariably means increasing. You can label it reform, you can call it tweaking the thresholds, but ultimately, it will extract more money from workers' pay packets. And yet, Labour persistently denies that this constitutes a tax rise. It's the oldest trick in the political playbook: rename the instrument before deploying it. And the media, somewhat complicit, features headlines discussing adjustments and policy reviews instead of calling it what it unequivocally is: a betrayal of economic commitments. But the deception doesn't cease there. Starmer has allowed a spectral presence to haunt every interview, every fiscal press release, the mythical £20 billion black hole. Labour asserts the Conservatives are responsible for this, an economic curse that necessitates difficult decisions. Yet, independent analysts beg to differ. The Office for Budget Responsibility cannot locate it. Leading economists have dismissed it as a phantom figure. So, why does Labour continually reference it? Because they require a scapegoat. They need a narrative to legitimize what is ostensibly forthcoming, a tax hike so broad and profound it will dwarf anything we've witnessed since George Osborne's austerity era. And here's the cunning aspect: Labour's figures aren't just vague, they are deliberately imprecise. They leave just enough ambiguity to facilitate plausible deniability. Reeves declares they'll be fiscally disciplined but declines to specify how. Starmer promises no surprises, yet his policy documents are riddled with placeholders and conditional language. They aren't offering a coherent plan, they are presenting a political illusion designed to withstand headlines, not genuine scrutiny. And when the bills eventually materialize and the public inquires, why didn't you forewarn us? Labour will likely retort, we never promised not to raise that tax. This is deception by design. It's not merely about concealing details, it's about constructing a narrative that renders falsehoods palatable as truths. It's the identical ruse they employed with immigration: claim credit for someone else's achievement, distort the timeline, promote it via a slick poster, and by the time the actual facts emerge, the damage is already done. Starmer isn't operating within the realm of verifiable facts and figures, he's operating within the sphere of public perception and tactical delay. Control the narrative sufficiently long to secure the election, then deflect blame when reality inevitably intervenes. And here's the most perilous aspect: if they are prepared to fabricate figures on something as critical as the national budget, what will they not lie about? If Starmer can assert with a straight face that increasing national insurance isn't a tax hike, what would he term slashing NHS funding? Service efficiency? If he breaks a pledge on tuition fees, will he label it a strategic re-evaluation? The man who once vowed to abolish universal credit now defends the very same welfare architecture. The man who pledged to reverse Tory tax breaks now deems them pragmatic. Every promise appears to have an expiry date, and the closer they approach power, the faster the ink fades. Andrew Neil was correct. This isn't politics as usual. This is a party that has weaponized dishonesty, not primarily to combat the Conservatives, but to placate the public. Starmer undoubtedly knows his figures don't add up. He knows the working class is observing. But he's banking on exhaustion, on apathy, on the notion that after 14 years of Tory disarray, people will accept anything adorned with a red rosette. What now? It's the ultimate political gamble: lie now, govern later, and hope no one recollects the specifics. But they will, because the internet does not forget. Screenshots do not vanish. And tax increases, regardless of how elegantly they are rebranded, invariably inflict pain. The question is no longer if Labour will renege on its economic commitments. The question is how many falsehoods one government can perpetuate before the public finally declares, enough. Before Starmer became the figurehead of what some term corporate Labour, he was something entirely different, a beacon of hope for the party's grassroots. He didn't ascend to power by presenting himself as a centrist manager. No, he draped himself in the banners of the very movement he would later, arguably, dismantle. He pledged unwavering loyalty to the left. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Jeremy Corbyn. He spoke passionately about nationalisation, workers' rights, free education, and challenging the elite. And the members believed him. They bestowed upon him their votes, their trust, their energy. But once Starmer had secured what he desired, the leadership, he systematically obliterated every promise he had made, one by one. Not discreetly, not reluctantly, but strategically, ruthlessly, like a man meticulously removing fingerprints from a crime scene. Let's begin with the 10 pledges. These weren't vague aspirations, they were specific, audacious, and deliberately crafted to reassure Labour's core support that Starmer represented a continuity of Corbyn's vision, albeit with a more polished professional image. He promised to nationalise rail, mail, energy, and water. He pledged to abolish universal credit. He vowed to end outsourcing in the NHS, increase taxes on the affluent, and champion free movement. But what transpired after he secured the leadership? Those pledges were quietly excised from Labour's website, not merely updated, but completely erased. When pressed, Starmer equivocated and deflected, claiming circumstances have changed. But this wasn't mere change, it was, arguably, a betrayal. And it wasn't just policies he abandoned, it was people. Starmer once referred to Jeremy Corbyn as a friend and colleague. He campaigned for him in both 2017 and 2019. He stood on public platforms extolling his leadership. Yet, today he asserts he hasn't spoken to Corbyn in over 2 years. Was he a friend? Starmer was asked. His reply? No, cold. Calculating. That's not political evolution, that's opportunism. Because when Starmer stood alongside Corbyn, he wasn't demonstrating solidarity, he was biding his time. He evidently understood that the leadership couldn't be won from the right, so he leveraged the left to ascend the ladder, then discarded it. Let's not forget, Starmer's leadership pitch was ostensibly built on loyalty. He proclaimed that Labour needed unity and that he would bring the party together. But instead of unity, he ushered in purges. Hundreds of left-wing members and MPs have been deselected, marginalised, or suspended, many on vague, unexplained grounds. Meanwhile, hard-right defectors and Blairite remnants have been welcomed back into the fold. This isn't unity, it's a hostile takeover. Starmer isn't leading Labour, he's colonising it. Just consider how he's treated Diane Abbott, Britain's first black female MP and one of Labour's most steadfast anti-racism campaigners. Suspended over a letter, subjected to months of investigation, then sidelined while Starmer prevaricated on questions about whether she would be permitted to stand again. Abbott wasn't just a Labour MP, she was a symbol of the party's moral conscience. And Starmer treated her like a liability. Why? Because the new Labour seemingly doesn't desire conscience, it desires control. This is precisely what Andrew Neil was alluding to when he remarked, Starmer governs through deception. It's not solely about misleading the public, it's about misleading his own party. He constructed his platform on ideals he had no genuine intention of upholding. And he didn't simply abandon them, he buried them, discredited them, and endeavoured to rewrite history. He now maintains Labour is back in the centre ground. But that centre ground is, arguably, built on broken promises, shattered movements, and silenced dissent. And while he preaches about restoring trust in politics, the truth is, he's contributed to its wholesale erosion. Because when you betray the very people who elevated you to power, you don't merely lose trust, you obliterate it. And the public perceives it. They recall the pledges, the Corbyn posters, the grassroots campaigns, the promises to tax the wealthy, nationalise energy, protect the NHS, and they observe what remains, a Labour Party that looks, sounds, and behaves remarkably like the very system it once purported to oppose. Starmer hasn't merely evolved, he's seemingly morphed from a hope-infused leadership candidate into a poll-obsessed political technician. There's no discernible vision, no underlying ideology, just tactics. Every policy is scrutinized by focus groups. Every maneuver is rehearsed for optimal camera optics. Every utterance is triangulated to avoid causing offense to corporate donors. This isn't leadership, it's branding. And yet, the mainstream press applauds him. They laud him as a prime ministerial, disciplined, so electable. But ask yourself, electable for whom? The working class he, arguably, betrayed? The left he, arguably, purged? Or the boardrooms and media moguls he now openly courts? This is what betrayal looks like, not in one dramatic instant, but in 1,000 subtle incisions. A pledge quietly deleted here. A comrade unceremoniously discarded there. A policy reversed, then conveniently rebranded as a pragmatism. And all the while, Starmer insists he's acting for the greater good of the party. But the only thing that's genuinely improved is his image in the eyes of the establishment. Keir Starmer built a political identity upon two words, trust and change. But as we've witnessed through Andrew Neil's scathing critique, Labour's supposedly fabricated economic plans, and the ruthless betrayal of its own movement, those words have been hollowed out, twisted, and repackaged for mass consumption, like mere slogans on a billboard. And now, in the face of Reform UK's surge and Nigel Farage's relentless presence in the headlines, Starmer isn't reacting with confidence, he's reportedly panicking. You can discern it in his voice. You can observe it in the desperation of Labour's communications team, name-dropping Farage 16 times in a single speech, attempting to mock him while simultaneously validating him. That's not leadership, that's fear. Starmer's Labour isn't ahead because of genuine belief, it's ahead due to public exhaustion. He's not garnering votes on principle, he's effectively coasting on a widespread protest against the preceding 14 years. But that type of victory is inherently fragile. Because when the dust settles, people don't merely desire someone who isn't the Tories, they want someone who truly means what they say. And at present, Starmer's sole consistent aptitude is sounding as if he cares, whilst doing the precise opposite. The Farage factor isn't merely a political inconvenience, it's a litmus test. Reform's ascent has exposed the one thing Labour is seemingly terrified of, an electorate that still poses critical questions. Questions such as, if Labour genuinely supports working people, why are they freezing child benefits in real terms? Why are they preparing tax increases while feigning otherwise? Why have they abandoned every transformative idea the grassroots ever championed? Why is Diane Abbott, a veteran MP, treated with more suspicion than the donors seated in the front row of Starmer's fundraisers? These are not minor inconsistencies, they are fundamental fissures in the foundation. And if Andrew Neil, doyen of British journalism, can perceive it clearly enough to publicly articulate it, then voters are undoubtedly beginning to perceive it too. Starmer's meticulously cultivated image of stability, integrity, and economic credibility is precisely that, an image. Peel back the veneer, and you purportedly uncover a leader fixated on optics, averse to accountability, and profoundly committed to securing power at any cost. So, where does that leave us? With a Labour Party that wears red but, arguably, governs light blue. A leader who speaks of trust while operating through manipulation. And a nation that is desperate for genuine change being offered the same menu, albeit with different branding. This isn't solely about Starmer. It's about whether Britain still believes in truth, whether voters can still be duped by manufactured narratives, or whether the illusion is finally shattering. Because once people realize they've been sold a faucet, they don't simply turn away, they become enraged. So now, we turn to you. Is Starmer truly the answer Britain requires, or merely another polished performer in a rigged political theatre? Can the public afford to believe him one more time, or has the mask finally slipped too far? Do let us know in the comments. And if you found this breakdown insightful, please do like, share, and subscribe for more truth behind the headlines. The next act in this political drama is just commencing, and you won't wish to miss it. Thank you.